It honestly feels like NASCAR is reaching one of those pressure-filled moments where you can sense the tension growing throughout the entire garage. And right now, two huge developments connected to one of the sport's biggest stars are getting everybody talking. Because what unfolded at Watkins Glen surprised a lot of fans. And once you combine that with the growing chatter happening behind the scenes, it suddenly feels like NASCAR could be heading toward a major turning point right in front of us. And the wild part is this situation goes way beyond a single race weekend now. This is about stress, frustration, health concerns, team chemistry, contracts, expectations, and possibly the future of a driver who helped shape an entire generation of NASCAR fans. You can feel the frustration building almost every week lately. The radio conversations sound more tense, the reactions feel more emotional, and fans are beginning to ask questions that honestly didn't seem possible not that long ago. Today we're breaking down both stories because there's a lot happening around this situation right now, and some of these developments could have a huge impact on the rest of the season moving forward. But before we dive in, if you enjoy real NASCAR discussions like this and want to be part of the community early, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to NASCAR Zone. The channel is still growing fast, and we're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers, so seriously, thank you to everybody supporting from the beginning. Alright, let's get into the first story because the situation at Watkins Glen immediately caught people's attention during the race itself. Kyle Busch was actually putting together one of his strongest performances of the season. He was running inside the top 5 late. The car looked fast, the pace was competitive, and for once it felt like the number 8 team had a legitimate chance to compete for something meaningful instead of simply surviving another frustrating weekend. But then everything suddenly shifted during the final stage. Kyle Busch radioed the team with a request that instantly got people talking. Calmly and directly, he asked the crew to locate Dr. William Heisel after the race because he was going to need a shot afterward. And immediately, that message grabbed attention throughout the garage area. Veteran NASCAR reporter Dustin Long was the first to report the radio communication, explaining that Busch specifically requested Dr. Heisel meet him at the team bus after the race rather than at the car itself. What made the moment stand out even more was Busch's tone over the radio. There was no panic, no dramatic urgency, nothing emotional at all. He sounded calm, serious, and extremely direct. Later, the FS1 broadcast added more context by explaining that Busch had apparently been dealing with a sinus-related illness throughout the week leading into Watkins Glen. So thankfully, from everything known right now, it does not appear connected to any crash injury or dangerous in-car issue. But even after that clarification, the entire situation still felt symbolic of how draining this season has become for both Kyle Busch and Richard Childress Racing. Because if we're being real, this has been extremely difficult to watch for longtime Kyle Busch fans. This is a 2-time Cup Series champion, one of the winningest drivers NASCAR has ever seen, and one of the most intimidating competitors of his generation. Yet over the last couple of seasons, nearly every race weekend seems to end with another frustrating storyline involving bad finishes, missed opportunities, radio tension, or disappointing results. And what made Watkins Glen hit even harder was the timing of it all. Busch was finally having a race where everything actually looked competitive from start to finish. The speed was there, the strategy looked solid, and the execution wasn't completely falling apart every few laps. Fans finally had a reason to feel optimistic again. Then suddenly, the conversation changed from a potential comeback performance to concerns about medical treatment after the race. That alone created concern across the NASCAR world. But then the situation became even more serious once fans started connecting it to the growing pressure surrounding Busch's future at Richard Childress Racing. Because just 1 week earlier at Texas, Busch was already facing heavy criticism following his incident with John Hunter Nemechek on the white flag lap. The aggressive contact hurt both drivers badly in the finishing order, and that's when Kevin Harvick entered the conversation with comments that shocked a lot of NASCAR fans. During an episode of Speed with Harvick and Mamba Smith, Harvick suggested that Kyle Busch may not have many realistic options left in the Cup Series if things continue trending in the wrong direction. And honestly, hearing that out loud sounds almost unbelievable when you remember who we're talking about here. This is Kyle Busch, a future Hall of Famer and one of the greatest drivers NASCAR has ever produced. Yet suddenly there are legitimate conversations happening about whether his long-term NASCAR future could actually be uncertain. Harvick specifically mentioned that the number 8 ride at Richard Childress Racing might realistically be Busch's best remaining opportunity moving forward. He even implied that if it's not the only option available, it's definitely the strongest one left. And you could tell even the people around him were surprised hearing him say it that directly. But once you really look at the current NASCAR landscape, Harvick's argument starts making uncomfortable sense. Most elite organizations already have younger stars locked into long-term contracts. Teams are investing heavily into development programs. Sponsors want stability for the future. And meanwhile, Kyle Busch is now 41 years old, facing one of the toughest stretches of his entire career while navigating a difficult contract situation. That's where the second story really connects to everything. Because according to growing discussion around the garage area, frustration between Busch and Richard Childress Racing may be reaching a serious level internally. And honestly, if you've listened to the team radios this season, you can already hear some of that tension building. There have been emotional moments at Martinsville, heated radio exchanges during races, frustration over setups, disappointment about speed, strategy mistakes, execution problems, and constant anger over poor results. Emotional radio moments are nothing new for Kyle Busch fans. We've seen that throughout his entire career. The difference now is that back during his peak years at Joe Gibbs Racing, those emotional outbursts usually ended with wins, playoff runs, and championships. Now the frustration keeps growing, but the victories are no longer coming with it. And that changes the way people inside the garage look at these situations. According to people close to the organization, tension is reportedly building on both sides. Busch is said to be increasingly frustrated with the team's inability to consistently run at the front, while at the same time there are reportedly people inside Richard Childress Racing growing exhausted with the negativity and emotional pressure surrounding the entire program. That combination can become dangerous for any race team because once frustration starts turning personal instead of competitive, things can unravel very quickly. Then you add the Watkins Glen doctor request, the illness concerns, emotional exhaustion, contract pressure, and overall stress surrounding the season, and suddenly people across NASCAR are beginning to wonder whether this is becoming more than just a rough year. Some are even starting to question whether Kyle Busch is slowly losing the edge that once made him one of the most feared drivers in the entire sport. Personally, I still think completely counting Kyle Busch out would be a massive mistake. He's still one of the smartest racers in the garage, and one of the toughest competitors NASCAR has ever seen. We've watched veteran drivers bounce back before after people thought they were finished. But at the same time, reality can't be ignored either. The results simply haven't been consistent. The pressure keeps growing heavier every week, and the overall energy around this situation feels very different compared to even a year ago. That's why the next few months are going to be huge for Kyle Busch, Richard Childress Racing, and honestly the entire NASCAR silly season. Because if this partnership can't find stability soon, the questions surrounding Busch's future are only going to grow louder. And for NASCAR fans, that's emotional to even think about. We're talking about a driver who helped define an entire era of the sport. A driver fans either passionately supported or passionately rooted against every Sunday. But no matter what side you were on, everybody watched. Kyle Busch has been one of the biggest personalities in modern NASCAR for nearly 2 decades. So seeing him go through this kind of struggle is honestly difficult for a lot of fans to process right now. Now I want to hear from you guys. Do you believe Kyle Busch and Richard Childress Racing can still turn this season around? Or do you think the pressure and frustration are becoming too much for this partnership to survive long term? And if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, subscribe, and join the NASCAR Zone community. The channel is still growing, and we're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers. So if you enjoy daily NASCAR news, honest fan reactions, and real conversations about the sport, we'd love to have you here with us.